When it comes to sci-fi shows, Star Trek is one of the best. Star Trek DS9 had everything. There is drama, love, deception, and action. The group moved as a single unit on screen, not really off-screen. Tensions rose and fell, and one cast member had enough. Terry Frell, who played Jadzia Dax, quit. Why? What took place behind the scenes? Come with us on a trip to space to find out what happened that wasn't shown on TV. A different beginning. The path to fame for Terry Frell didn't begin on a spaceship. It began in Iowa's Cedar Rapids. She jumped, as many small-town girls do who have big dreams do. She sent a picture to Elite Model Management, one of the best modeling companies in New York, when she was a junior in high school. She got a deal with Mademoiselle magazine just 2 days after moving to the city at the age of 16. Her quick rise got her on the covers of Vogue in both Italy and Germany, and in the pages of Vogue in the United States. It was her plan to walk the catwalk, but her heart wasn't really there. Terry started learning how to act after 18 months of modeling. She kept one foot in the fashion world to make money, but she was no longer interested in it. Early parts, like playing a model in Paper Dolls and getting a supporting role with Rodney Dangerfield in the 1986 comedy Back to School, showed how hard she had to work. That was Frell's first movie role, and it showed that she had more to give than just good looks. She also had guest roles on TV shows like The Twilight Zone, Quantum Leap, and The Cosby Show, adding to her list of roles over time. By the early 1990s, she was looking for parts with more depth. In 1992, she was cast as Kat in the U.S. version of Red Dwarf, which was at the time called Hit in the U.K. Too bad the pilot never aired. It was dead when we got there. The sadness didn't last long, though. Soon after, Frell got the part that would make or break her career. She played Jadzia Dax in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Dax wasn't just a pretty face. He was a Starfleet science officer on a space station near a key wormhole. The creature she was a trill whose bodies hold long-living symbionts. Jadzia Dax brought around memories and experiences from hundreds of years ago, including those of her 7 previous hosts. Frell played her with a sense of calm authority, a hint of mystery, and some funny, surprising moments. She became a favorite in the process. She was the voice of one of the bravest and most grown-up Star Trek shows ever for 6 seasons. When DS9's last season got close, though, things started to get tense behind the scenes. Frell finally lost it because of disagreements over ideas, contract talks, and rumors of power battles with the show's producers. Fans were shocked when she quit at the end of Season 6. The studio killed off her character's host instead of recasting her or giving up on her. So what really took place behind the scenes? Check back to find out. One of the most beloved parts of the Star Trek series is still Terry Frell's role as Jadzia Dax in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. She brought to life a character for 6 seasons who wasn't just a science officer in Starfleet or a home for memories from hundreds of years ago. It was hard to find someone as kind, smart, and strong as she in a world full of war, politics, and unclear morals. She did not follow a star-marked path to Deep Space Nine, though. Frell was offered the part of Jadzia Dax after having a few small parts in shows like Quantum Leap and The Cosby Show, as well as a short-lived pilot for the U.S. version of Red Dwarf. At that point, work on DS9 had already started. She was the last key cast member to be hired, and when she got there, the set was already full of energy, stress, and expectations. It was too much to handle from the start. Just seeing how big the ops set was scary. Frell remembers being scared, excited, and wide-eyed all at the same time. It was just as hard to put on makeup. At first, her character had a brow prosthetic that didn't quite work. Well-known show makeup artist Michael Westmore made a big change. He took off the fake limb and put on the now iconic trill spots. Because of the change, some of her early scenes had to be shot again. It was a quick crash lesson in franchise TV. But after everything calmed down, Frell started to feel at home on set, and in her part as Jadzia. The things that drew her to her character Jadzia Dax the most were how calm, sure, and peaceful she was inside. In real life, Frel sometimes felt raw and uncertain, but Dax gave her some warmth. She gained a sense of stability and wisdom from the character that she hadn't yet gained on her own journey. I felt safe when I played Dax. "It was like an anchor," she said one time. Jadzia Dax became the heart of Deep Space Nine in many ways. The show's stories were often dark and philosophical, but she added a spark of hope, curiosity, and even flirtatious comedy. The audience always felt hopeful because Frel's natural energy flowed through the character. It was never too loud or forced. It seemed real. One of the emotional bases of the show was her relationship with Benjamin Sisko, played by Avery Brooks. Brooks would often tell her she was too open when they weren't filming, but being honest was what kept Jadzia alive. But behind that magic, anxiety was building. As the show went on, Frel started to feel the stress. Creative differences and fights behind the scenes, especially with Rick Berman, who runs the show, started to take away from the fun of the work. When talks started to bring her back for the 7th season, they quickly turned bad. Frel had hoped for more freedom, maybe even the chance to be less visible on TV so she could work on other projects. But instead of giving in, she felt pressure. There was pressure on her that finally broke her. Frel chose to leave instead of staying to fight behind the scenes. Fans were shocked when she quit, and the companies responded quickly. At the end of Season 6, Jadzia was killed off. But for many watchers, Deep Space Nine was never the same without her. The symbiont lived on in a new host. Soon after, Frel joined the cast of the sitcom Becker, where things were less serious, the risks were lower, and the creative tensions were much lower. There was a new beginning and a breath of fresh air. Fans still talk about her leaving after all these years. What caused it? Could they have stopped it? Should she have stayed? How would the show finished if she had? One thing is always true, no matter what the guesses are. There will always be a place in Star Trek history for Terry Frel's Jadzia Dax. Her show lit up a dark room, and that light is still shining. Now for the real reason Terry Frel ended her longest-running show, Terry Frel's Marriages. Both on and off screen, Terry Frel's life has been interesting. She married Brian Baker, an actor, in 2002. Baker is best, known as the happy guy from those old Sprint ads. They had a son named Max together. But after being married for more than 10 years, they quietly split up in 2015. In a twist that Star Trek fans might think is too good to be true, Frel found love again, but this time, it was in the Star Trek world. She made plans to marry Adam Nimoy, who is the son of Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock in the original Star Trek series. Adam, a TV director, had been interested in Star Trek for a long time through his father, but he had also made a name for himself. He even made a touching film about his father called For the Love of Spock to celebrate his memory. In 2017, their wedding made the news. Fans thought it was a sweet meeting of two groups, Spock's son with the woman who played a Trill with memories from 8 lives. In the same year, they made it legal, and soon after, they were married. Both of them were married for the second time. Each of them had kids from past relationships, and they were both big Star Trek fans. Terry even tweeted the news, which made the internet go crazy with joy. However, it took a few hours for the news to spread across social media, or as fans joked, subspace traffic. But in 2022, their marriage ended, just like some starships move apart. Terry and Adam split up after 5 years of being together. Still, their story is still a special part of Star Trek's past, not just because of what they did, but also because their love and real life were so connected. Two people from different parts of the company got together, even though it didn't last a long time. The marriage of Terry and Brian Baker wasn't the only love story in the Star Wars movies. People from other Star Trek groups who are now together Sometimes the energy between Star Trek co-stars carries over into real life. Behind the scenes, a few relationships formed, leading to their own types of star-crossed stories. 2 of Deep. Space Nine's most adored stars, Alec Baldwin as Dr. Hugh Basher and Kira Nerys, Nana Visitor Major, got married in real life. They were married from 1997 to 2001 and have a son together called Django. What's amazing is how close they stayed even after they broke up. Before and during their marriage, Sedig and Visitor were not only partners but also best friends. They have a great bond as co-parents. Visitor says that they still talk and see each other at least twice a year, which is a rare sign of respect and care that lasts after marriage. Last but not least is Roxanne Dawson, who Star Trek fans know best as B'Elanna Torres from Star Trek Voyager. Roxanne Dawson, Roxanne Biggs, and Roxanne Biggs Dawson are some of the names you may have seen her with because of her personal life. You may know Dawson or Casey Biggs as Demar from DS9. Before they became famous on Star Trek, they were married from 1985 to 1987. They were dating before they became Star Trek stars, and while they don't talk about each other much in interviews, they both say nice things about each other. But both stars have moved on and married other people since then. Their early relationship adds an interesting twist to Star Trek history. Another interesting fact is that Patrick Stewart and Jennifer Hetrick are dating, even though they were only together on screen. But there were some rough spots in their relationship. Patrick Stewart, who played Captain Jean-Luc Picard on Star Trek The Next Generation, didn't just deal with danger from aliens and politics in space on TV. His real life was also very exciting. Stewart had just ended a long marriage when TNG began shooting. He was married to Sheila Falconer for more than 20 years before she died. He was in his 20s when they got married, a long time before Star Trek made him famous. But by the late 1980s, they were no longer together. Not because he was famous, but because Stewart started dating someone else. Jen Hetrick, who played Vash, one of Picard's love interests on the show, was that person. When they worked together, on shows like Cupid, it felt real because it was. They were not just pretending. During seasons 3 and 4, Stewart and Hetrick were seeing each other in real life. In fact, they were engaged while shooting Kid. The wedding never happened, though, and they quietly broke up in the end. Stewart later got married to Wendy Noose, who helped make the show. They were married until 2003. Yes, Stewart's love life was a mess during Star Trek, even more so than most fans thought. There were more problems for him than just relationships, though. Stewart wrote in his memoir out in 2023 that he had a hard time sleeping after his split. He started taking sleeping pills to deal with things. So far, it looked like nothing bad was going on. It was just something to help him rest and keep up with the demands of being the lead in a big show. But he needed them more and more over time. Things got tough when he finally chose to quit. During his retreat, he felt very bad. He said he woke up in the middle of the night sweaty and in a panic, and he thought his house was haunted. It wasn't ghosts. His body and mind were having a hard time adjusting. He made it through, thank goodness. It took a while, but Stewart finally felt calm again after giving up the pills. Many fans still remember how much they liked the relationship between Picard and Voss. But Stewart had a real-life love, a breakup, and a fight with himself that he mostly kept hidden for years. It's a warning that even the best captains have. Bad times and that getting better doesn't happen at warp speed. Another Star Trek actor who had an interesting relationship was Linda Park, who played Enen Hoshiato on Star Trek Enterprise from 2001 to 2005. She dated Tom Hardy at that time. He played Shinzon in the 2002 movie Star Trek Nemesis. From 2003 to 2004, they were together, and Park even went to South London to live with Hardy. When things got really bad, they talked about starting their own theater group together. But they broke up before any of that could happen, and Park moved back to California. In 2011, she married actor Daniel Bess. In the meantime, Hardy split up with his wife in 2004 and married Charlotte Riley again in 2014. The Next Generation's counselor, Deanna Troi, was played by Marina Sirtis. In the news world, she often gets things wrong. A lot of her fans think she dates or dated Michael Dorn, who played Worf. She is married to a different Michael, though, and they are happy together. Lamper is a great rock musician, not an actor like Dorn. His favorite bands include the Allman Brothers and Los Lobos, and he tours with them. He is also in the Eagles parody band Desperado. This is a fun fact. Lamper even made an appearance on The Next Generation as an Akamaran gatherer in the episode The Vengeance Factor. He got the part while he was dating Sirtis. That same year, they got married, and their bond stayed strong. Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock and is one of Star Trek's most recognized faces, also fell in love with someone from the show. Nimoy is known for shaping Spock's personality and making the Vulcan salute and the line "Live long and prosper" more well-known. He married Susan Bay in 1989. In 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine, Prologue and Whispers, she played Admiral Rollman. Their marriage continued until Nimoy's death in 2015, and they were very happy together. They were connected through their love of Star Trek. Star Trek hasn't always been about getting along, though. There were disagreements about the future. In the background, why Terry Farrell really quit Star Trek. In 1993, Star Trek Deep Space Nine came out. It was not at all like the other Star Trek shows. It didn't follow a ship that went from one world to another. The story stayed in one place, a space station close to a rift. This wormhole led to a different part of the space. Soon, a strong enemy named the Dominion came through it and changed everything. Jadzia Dax was one of the show's best characters. Jadzia was fun, smart, and full of life. She was a trill, a type of species where a symbiont lives inside a host for a long time. Because Dax had lived many lives before Jadzia, she remembered and could do things from all of those lives. Curzan Dax, one of them, was close with Captain Sisko. Sisko already thought of Jadzia as family when she joined the team. Jadzia was more than just a science worker. With her bravery and open mind, she was able to hang out with Klingons and do science problems without any trouble. As time went on, she became deeply in love with Worf and became close with Kira. A lot of fans were shocked by that partnership, but it worked. Jadzia had the same fighting spirit as Worf, and the two of them were very strong together. They got married too. Through Season 6 of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Jadzia Dax had become a fan favorite. Strong, smart, funny, and kind. She was more than just the science officer. She was the crew's heart. People will always remember her for her friendship with Captain Sisko, her wild side with the Klingons, and her love for Worf. The surprise came next. Jadzia died in the last episode of Season 6, Tears of the Prophets. They attacked her while she was at the Temple of the Prophets. Gul Dukat was controlled by the Paw Wraiths, which are evil spirits. In the end, she died in sick bay after being badly hurt. People saved the Dax symbiont and put it into a new host named Ezri, who joined the team in Season 7. But for many fans, it wasn't the same. What really took place behind the scenes? Terry Farrell didn't really want to leave the show, that much is true. She only wanted less work to do. She asked to be in only half of the last season's episodes so she could try out other parts after 6 years of long filming hours. She didn't ask to leave. The company, especially executive producer Rick Burr, wouldn't let her go, even though she didn't ask to be. Either do all 26 episodes or do none at all, they told her. Later, Terry Farrell told everyone about her problems with Berman. She wrote in the book The 50-Year Mission that he was racist toward her body and tried to get her to stay. Rick Berman was the one who made it hard for me to leave. She said, "I think he's just very sexist. He'd say things like, 'Your bra size isn't very full.' So much was going on, especially in the first few years." She said she wasn't trying to leave. She was just wanting to talk. As she asked, Berman said, "Hard ball," and wouldn't give in. The talks turned nasty. She was even told by a junior director that she would work at Kmart instead of on the show. Frel said she was under a lot of pressure all the time. She even said she got calls right before scenes asking if she had signed the deal yet. She remembered, "He was trying to force me to say yes." Bear said he didn't know about the stress and that he might have helped or even left with her if he had known. Berman never responded to Frel's claims about how he behaved. He said he didn't have the power to fire her because the studio told him, "No way, she does all 26 episodes or nothing." It didn't matter if Berman had anything to do with it. The result was the same. The show was very sad without Jadzia. Fans didn't connect with Jadzia Dax as much as they did with Jadzia when she came on in Season 7. It was written that Ezri was scared, unprepared, and afraid of herself. A huge difference to Jadzia, who was brave and sure of herself. The love, tension between Ezri and Worf, who was still sad about his wife, didn't seem right. Even though they were together for a short time, their romance ended, and Ezri ended up with Dr. Julian Basher by the end of the series. At the same time, Frel's leaving was still a sore spot. She wasn't in What You Leave Behind, the last episode of the series. A scene was written for Jadzia, but it was cut because of money issues. Another sign of how bad things had gotten was that Frel wouldn't let her picture be used in the flashback sequence. Frel has talked about her time on Deep Space Nine in a warmer way over the years, though. She said she wished she hadn't left so quickly at a Star Trek gathering in 2007 and that Jadzia Dax was her favorite character. She said, "It's hard to go from playing a hero to a neurotic bad cook." The part was similar to one she played later on Becker. Going to Trey Las Vegas in 2014, she wore a shirt that said Dax 539 and was fully dressed. Michael Westmore, a nod, to the 539 Times makeup artist, did her famous spots. She told fans she'd be happy to come back to the series if she got the chance and thanked them for their love and support. It could be a hologram, a copy, or a Jadzia from a different world. In 2017, Frel was in Renegades, a fan show with a lot of former Star Trek actors. It's clear that her character Jada got ideas from Jadzia, which is a sly nod to fans of the show. Even though the show didn't use direct Star Trek branding, it did bring together stars like Aaron Eisenberg, Walter Koenig, Michelle Nichols, Robert Beltran, Tim Russ, and Sir Lofton. Even though she died on Deep Space Nine, Jadzia Dax is still one of the most loved characters in the series. A scientist, a soldier, a friend, and a lover. She had lived many lives, but her time on the station with Sisko, Kira, Wararf, and the rest of the crew was what made her famous. Jadzia Dax is still a big part of why Deep Space Nine worked so well, no matter how it finished. She gave the station life, meaning, and soul. Her story, both on and off screen, shows us that the best characters don't just live in the script, they also live in the lives of the actors who play them. Different makers have different ideas. Ira Steven Behr didn't just want to follow the rules when he joined Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He wanted to change them. Star Trek had long been a utopia where peace ruled and people had grown past violence. But Behr saw a different side of the galaxy, where alliances fell apart. Morals were put to the test, and even Starfleet officers could break the rules. Before he changed the characters of Star Trek, Behr worked hard as a TV writer to get ahead. He got a job as a producer on The Next Generation during the 3rd season, but it didn't last. Behr quickly got annoyed by the strict rules for creativity. Even though the universe was very big, the box for stories felt very small. He later said there were too many rules. He then left. But his time with Star Trek wasn't over yet. Due to his friendship with Michael Piller, he was asked to come back for one of his own episodes, Cupid. Piller then hired him as a supervising director on Deep Space Nine. Behr's part changed as the show did. By the 2nd season, he was a co-executive producer. Before Piller left to start Voyager, Behr was in charge of DS9. After that, things got interesting. Behr had a big idea. He wanted to write a war story. Not a small fight or a one-time event, but a full-on galactic war that grew over many seasons. He wanted to make things more dangerous for years by adding the Dominion, a strong new threat from the Gamma Quadrant. But Rick Berman, who was in charge of the brand and was chosen by Gene Roddenberry to be its leader, wasn't convinced. Berman said that Roddenberry made it clear that Star Trek was not a war show. He had pictured a time in the future when there was peace and no longer any need to fight. Gene was very clear. He said he didn't want Star Trek to be about fights between galaxies. Bear didn't agree. He thought that war could be used to test the very ideas that Star Trek was based on and learn more about them. Burr didn't want to let him try, but he knew the arc would be short. "You're done after 6 shows, right?" "Ira?" he is said to have asked. Not right. The Dominion War began in the Season 5 finale, Call to Arms, and wouldn't end until the next season's ending, The Last Battle, in 2016. There were more than just the Federation and the Dominion. The Klingons, Romulans, Cardassians, and finally the Breen all joined the fight. There was no clear winner. There were deaths, morals were put to the test, and Star Trek looked into the darkness and stayed there for the first time. Bear wasn't afraid to show how much war costs. As part of one of the most powerful storylines in the show, Captain Sisko has to trick the Romulans into joining the war. He plans a murder and tells lies to protect the cover-up in order to do it. "I can live with it," Sisko says at the end of the show, looking straight into the camera. He sounds more scared than brave. D9 was no longer about perfect people using logic to solve problems. It was about how ideals can break down under stress and how making the right choice can still mean killing someone. Later, Berman said he wasn't happy with how long the arc went on for, but he kept reading every script and talking about every twist. "I wasn't necessarily happy that it went as long as it did," he said, "but that's how TV works." Looking back, Bear was right. The Dominion War arc is now seen as one of the bravest storylines in Star Trek history. That gave the show a weight and depth that most sci-fi shows at the time didn't have. It was complicated, morally gray, and deeply human. But was it still Star Trek? Some fans say no, that DS9 went too far from Roddenberry's idealistic future. They say Star Trek was meant to be an aspirational show about a world without war and money, where people had grown past their worst instincts. Others say that's exactly what made it great, because Bear never praised war and DS9 never pretended. That violence was heroic. It always showed it as a failure, a necessary evil at best, and a moral collapse at worst. Star Trek's most important question, what kind of people do we become when everything we believe in is under threat, was always present in DS9. Ira Steven Bear didn't break Star Trek by asking that question and refusing to look away from the answers. He made it stronger. Tell us what you think in the comments below. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. After this video, don't forget to watch the next one.